My mother accused me of letting my wife parent alone, so I snapped at her.
How dare you say that?
I, 35 male, went on a family outing over the weekend with my wife, kids, mother-in-law, father-in-law, and my own parents. My mother said something that didn't sit right with me, and I'm not sure I handled it well. By the way, this comes from user throwaway no respect wife. And if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OK Storytime subreddit. I'm Dakota.
I'm Sophia.
I'm Carly.
And we'll try to give our best advice, but we haven't experienced most of these situations ourselves. So if you have, let us know your take in the comments. OP says, okay, I know I didn't handle it well since I snapped at her in the zoo food court and took my son and walked off, but I'm not sure if not well equates to being the a-hole. My wife, in-laws, and parents all seem to think so, but I hope some unbiased opinions might see it differently. Brother, if your wife is already on team a-hole, just listen to your wife.
Yeah.
There's a lot I'm dealing with at the moment in terms of my marriage, and a divorce is a possibility.
Oh, okay, now I don't fully trust your wife anymore. Or maybe you're still the a-hole.
Yeah. Long story short, I lost my job when my wife was pregnant, leaving her as the sole breadwinner. She punted me out for 6 months.
Whoa.
I moved back in after getting 3 jobs, all of which I still have, but I'm living in the basement with no intimacy or physical contact of any kind, and we're starting marriage counseling this week. I posted on Reddit for anonymous feedback, most of which was solidly in the she's being a and I'm being a simp/martyr category. As a result, I've been taking a long, hard look at all the relationships in my life. This brings us to last weekend, when my wife made plans to take both our kids, 5 male and infant daughter, to a pool party event at our local zoo with her parents in mind,
What?
not me. I mentioned my exclusion, and she had several reasons for not inviting me, which aren't really relevant here. But when I pushed and asked to be included, she relented and invited me along. And that was the start of the issue. Imagine one of the issues was she was just like, I just don't like the way you stare at the apes.
Something about it freaks me out.
Her parents are not that fond of me right now, or ever, and my own parents are more concerned with keeping the peace with my wife, so as to not risk losing contact with my kids if divorce comes to pass. So my joining the zoo trip upped the tension immediately, as my in-laws assumed I pressured my wife into letting me come along. Aren't you a grown man who can, do what he wants? I'm sorry. Can't you also just be like, I want to go to the zoo?
Yeah. I'm just going to the zoo, man.
I'm going to the zoo.
The zoo's not private property. Well, I mean,
the zoo is probably, I would think some of them are private.
Yeah, it might be. But more so, you can't, I bought a ticket, I can come to the zoo.
I bought a ticket, I'm here at the zoo.
You can't me at the zoo. You don't own the zoo.
They were barely civil, and my parents were clearly worried I was going to cause some sort of argument or blow up, which in hindsight was probably a valid concern. It started off with little things. My wife was carrying the baby, and my mother insisted on holding my son's hand and walking as far on the other side of the group from me as possible. My son was playing in the animal-themed bouncy house and had long exceeded the allowed time. When I tried to get him, my mom told me to let him have his fun and stop wrecking the mood. When we all went for a ride on the little train that goes around the zoo, I was in the last car by myself, while the grandmas each had a kid. The only time anyone actually talked to me was to ask me for something out of the diaper bag, send me off to buy waters and sodas, or tell me to lighten up. Everything came to a head when we went to the food court to enjoy the air conditioner. It was like 100 degrees outside, and enjoy some snacks. My wife is usually very anti-sugar, so no candy or cookies, but my mother brought my son 2 bags of Skittles anyway. When I tried to tell her not to, she gave me some line about grandma knowing best and getting special privileges. The problem really came when we all sat down and my mother started talking with my wife about what it was like to have 2 kids, both so young. For context, I'm an only child, and my parents have said repeatedly over the years that this is by design. They only ever wanted 1 kid. They've also mentioned more than once that my mom had lost a pregnancy before she had me. So there's a layer of I was the second choice crap in there for me to deal with. That's maybe one of the most selfish ways I've ever seen someone internally digest that happening to someone.
Yeah,
that you're the second choice.
I don't know if I would,
I'm immediately not a fan of you
yeah.
for describing your mother's miscarriage as you being the second choice. You're actually trash for that.
That doesn't make sense.
I understand that they didn't actually make a choice, but there have been more than a few incidents in my life where they took someone else's side over mine, including when my wife punted me out and they refused to let me stay with them. That feeling of being second best is sort of baked into my DNA. My mom told my wife that she's always impressed by parents who can handle multiple kids because she knew right from the beginning that she couldn't do it. She said it was especially impressive when those kids are both so young and such a handful. All good, all true. No issue so far. Then my mother said to my wife, it must be even more difficult doing it as a single parent.
With OP there?
It's one of those things you just gotta pretend you didn't hear.
Dang.
OP continues, I swear that even though I'm not my wife's favorite person right now and her parents really don't like me, everyone's heads snapped up, staring at her with almost coordinated WTF looks. To her credit, my wife tried to save my mom from herself by pointing out she wasn't in any way single, and no matter what's going on between us, I've always contributed to taking care of the kids, which is the most credit she's given me for anything in a year and a half. My mom nodded along and said, of course, you're not actually single. And everyone tensed because we knew the but was coming. I had left my wife alone for 6 months, and even I've admitted that I failed her as a partner. So even though I was back in the house now, my mom could only imagine that my wife probably felt like she was still doing it all on her own. No one spoke up for me at that time. Yeah,
What do you mean you left your wife alone for 6 months?
Yeah, what do you mean? I
What do
thought
you
the
mean
whole
by
story
that?
was that she punted you
You
out.
said she you out. What do you mean by that?
Did she tell you, like, leave for today? Where she was just like, please just get out of my sight. I just can't deal with you right now. And you took that as, fine, I'll get out of your sight for 6 months.
But I don't understand what he means by that.
We're missing something there. And also, very weird of you to just, like, expect someone to speak up for you in that moment. Incredibly socially awkward, incredibly socially uncomfortable. This is not a day for everyone to like, defend you as a husband. This is supposed to be a nice family trip to the zoo.
Yeah.
No one's going to get up on their soapbox for you right now, dude.
No.
And that's okay.
Just let mom say crazy stuff and then talk to her later and be like, hey, mom, you're not cool.
You really harshed the mellow in the zood court.
Yeah, it runs in the family.
My emotions have been right below the surface for months, and I couldn't tell if I was going to cry or throw one of the bags of Skittles at my mom or both. I usually favor a shut down completely kind of conflict avoidance, but I just couldn't do it. I stood up, probably more forcefully than I needed to, as my chair almost tipped over. I stepped around my mom, collected my son from his seat with his bag of candy, and started walking away. Someone asked me where I was going, and I snapped without even looking back that I was taking my son to see the penguins, and we'd meet everyone back at the cars. I said it would be good for me to get some practice as a single parent so I don't fail at that too. It sounds way more intense than it was since I had started crying by then, and my voice cracked, making me sound like a whiny teenage boy, but it made the point. I don't think that's better, dude.
I don't know if that made the point that you wanted it to make, but I hope so.
My parents left while my son and I were at the penguin habitat, leaving it to my in-laws to drive the rest of us home. My father-in-law pulled me aside when they dropped us off to talk to me privately. He told me that my mother had left in tears and that she clearly hadn't meant what she said in that way.
No, she did. She clarified. She said, oh, I know, but she clarified
Well,
after.
no, I don't think there was a but.
Oh.
OP said that everyone was waiting for the but.
Oh, and she
I don't
didn't
think
say
there ever
one?
was one. So it really
that's
could have
sad.
been a situation where she was just making a joke at OP's expense. Being like, and how are you
Yeah.
doing this? Like, elbow, like, how are you doing this as a single parent?
It doesn't feel. Didn't feel like that.
At the very best, it's a bad joke. And maybe the reason it didn't feel like that, though, is because it's how OP's writing it.
It's true. Could just be OP's interpretation. I still think.
Because she did immediately go, yeah, no, of course, you're not actually. But it is just like a, dude, like, I'd be like, Mom,
Yeah.
why are you making that joke? Why are you
Yeah.
making the joke that my wife is leaving me when we're
Yeah.
like not in a great place? Not a great joke
Yeah.
to make. Kinda adds a little tension to the air. Father-in-law said I shouldn't be so sensitive about things since I was the one who effed up in the first place and
What
even
did you
opened the single
do?
parent door.
What did you do?
He opened the single parent door. My wife said much the same after we got the kids to bed before I went to the basement to work my online job. I've gotten 4 or 5 I'm sorry you feel that way, but texts from my mother and 1 apologies heal text from my dad. By the way, I'll never apologize for you healing with full episodes of stories like this for you to listen to on Spotify or iHeartRadio or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search OK Storytime, and you've got the whole OK Storytime catalog at your fingertips. There's a little bit more story here.
I think OP's mom was overstepping all day. I think she was trying to push the boundaries because I don't think she respects OP anymore. And we don't really know what he did. There might be a reason for it. I don't think it's right regardless of what the reason is because OP and his wife are trying to fix the relationship.
Yeah.
So I feel like just regardless of whether he was in the wrong or not, you can't really be saying and doing those things. But I think because of whatever he did, his mom no longer respects him and now is trying to insert herself into his parenting stuff.
Yeah, when parents overstep or when people do whatever, I always just go silly baby.
Yeah.
You gotta treat your parents like they're just little silly babies doing silly baby stuff. Don't let them have all of the power in the world over you. Let's see how this story ends. I drop the kids off at their house every morning before I head to work. And yesterday and today, my dad was the only one who came out to greet me. My mom is still texting my wife pictures of the kids throughout the day, but she never sent them to me, so I wouldn't have noticed it as a silent treatment. So have at it, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for snapping at my mother and clearly hurting her feelings? And there is an edit. I thought I wrote it clearly enough, but I guess not. My wife punted me out because I lost my job and didn't get a new one immediately. That left the financial burden on her, and she felt betrayed and wanted space. We've got some comments here. I wonder what the internet has to say. Comment 1. I think your wife is already mentally checked out of this relationship. At this point, her asking to go part-time or totally be a stay-at-home mom while you keep 3 jobs is for a bigger alimony. You've done the work, pull your share of the load, and seem to be trying to fix this. To me, it sounds like everyone finds it easier to crap on you instead of calling your wife out for her current behavior because they don't want to lose the grandkids. Your parents and in-laws are being a-holes. I would suggest individual therapy to start rebuilding your own spirit. Sounds to me like you need more help than you're letting on. Focus on the marriage counseling and be open and honest there. Your wife may just be very angry and resentful still, and she won't admit it. At the same time, discreetly speak with an absolute shark of a divorce attorney to get all your legal options figured out for the best and fairest outcome. It is possible that if your marriage ends, your wife will do her best to make it as ugly as possible, and your parents and in-laws will be of zero support. What a great comment from someone who really doesn't have your best interest at heart at all. Maybe not like with your best interest, but like the relationships.
Yeah. I feel like to say, oh, she clearly has checked out is
kind of not true based on what I've read.
I mean, they're actively going to therapy. And again, we don't know why she kicked him out. So it could be, we don't know exactly whose fault all of that stuff was. But it seems like she's actively going to therapy to fix the relationship and also defended you, which like a person who did not like you wouldn't really have the desire to do that usually.
Yeah. I just don't like speaking out of both sides of your mouth like that. Yeah. The guy's like, really just buy into the marriage counseling and can be committed to rebuilding your relationship.
But get a divorce
lawyer. But
lawyer.
Also secretly talk to the best divorce lawyer in town and get all your ducks in a row. It's like, what happens after you've done all that rebuilding and she finds out you were talking to a divorce attorney? All of that rebuilding goes out the window.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The more prepared you are for any outcome, the better you'll come out of it at the end of it. It's very ugly, but take it one day at a time. And there's an edit to document everything, her behavior, your solutions, steps you've taken, measures implemented to earn her trust, etc. Be as detailed as possible. You will need it. OP replies, I did therapy for a year after I lost my job. Not currently seeing anyone, as with 3 jobs, I don't have a lot of time for it. And now that time needs to be devoted to marriage counseling. But I know I need help. I need to figure out what's legit and reasonable guilt that I should be feeling and what's my personal history making me feel like I deserve continuous punishment. Comment 2 said, should have told mom you wanted a little more practice raising the kids solo because you didn't want to F him up like she did hers. Oh, I know, I'm a monster. But sometimes the world needs monsters to scare overconfident, brazen people back into their tiny little corners of existence. I hate that. That was bad. I didn't like either of those comments.
That was a bad comment. I told my wife to choose our family first after she took away the kids.
Well, it feels like she chose that part of the family first.
My wife and I are in the middle of a really rough patch in our marriage. We separated for 6 months, and even when we ended the separation, the issues that caused it weren't fixed. Long story short, I lost my job when she was pregnant. She asked me to move out, and when I moved back in, I was sleeping in the basement for quite a while. She has refused any sort of physical contact, and we've just started marriage counseling. We had our second session last night. By the way, this comes from Throwaway No Respect Wife, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OKStorytime subreddit. I'm Sophia.
I'm Dakota.
I'm Carly.
And we try to give our best advice, but we haven't experienced most of these situations ourselves. So if you have, let us know your take in the comments. And OP says, in marriage counseling, I've come to learn that our family more or less hates me, or at the very least, they don't trust me. Like, not at all. During our session last night, our therapist said that it was important for us to start spending more time together, both as a family with our 2 kids and as a couple. My wife was resistant to the idea of date nights, so the counselor reframed it as exposure therapy.
I think it's time to call it, buddy. Your wife needs exposure therapy to
you? Basically, she said that neither of us will ever get past the barriers that have built up in our relationship if we continue to essentially live separate lives. My wife seems to understand that and was fairly receptive to the idea, at least while we were in the counselor's office. Which brings us to this weekend. In America, it's a holiday weekend, and our family has a long-standing tradition of spending the 3-day weekend at my in-laws' camp on a lake. My sister-in-law and her family come, and most of my wife's extended family pops in for at least an afternoon or evening or 2, even if they don't spend the night. Some of her and my sister-in-law's friends from high school usually drop by for a catch-up too. I know my wife has been trying to reconnect with friends in an effort to find an identity outside of just being a mom and a wife. But given our current marital strife, the knowledge that my mother-in-law has actively and repeatedly tried to convince my wife that we should not be together, which I've only known about for barely a week, and my new and growing worry that my mistakes are now a black cloud hanging over my relationship with all my wife's family and friends, it seems to me like heading to camp should be a no-go. And in the fact that due to space constraints, we'd not only have to share a room, but also a bed, and it felt like too much. Okay, so OP saying, because I was confused why it would be a problem for them to share a bed, but I guess because they're still having to do exposure therapy. It'd probably be too fast to have to share a bed.
OP is looking at the exact solution to their problem and being like, no, we can't do it.
There's only one bed? No.
You mean we'd be in a place for a whole weekend where we'd have to be exposed to each other and hang out and be in the same room?
I mean, that's
well,
literally...
what are we doing? We can't do that.
That's literally what your counselor told you to do.
Ugh.
My wife didn't agree. In fact, 15 minutes after we got home from our first marriage counseling session last night, she started packing up for the weekend. But she was only packing for her and the kids. She didn't come right out and say it, but it was pretty obvious, even to usually oblivious me, that the plan was for my family to go to the lake without me. This was less than an hour after we had been told we needed to spend more time together.
Did you not just say
you didn't
that
ask her?
You were not down? I'm sorry. Am I crazy?
I think he just didn't want them to go at all.
So, okay.
That was the solution. He's like...
So you were like, we're actually not going to do this. And she went, we are not going to do this because you don't want to.
He didn't actually ask her, though.
No?
He just assumed. He was like, it was pretty clear I wasn't going.
No,
they never
exactly.
Had a
but I'm saying right before he comes back, he had already told her, we just read. Was that an inside thought?
It was an inside thought.
When he was like,
yes.
Oh, like, we shouldn't do this. It's too soon.
Yeah, that was an inside thought.
That was an inside thought.
Mm-hmm. I tried pointing that out in a calm and as non-confrontational a way as I could, using the I feel statements our therapist suggested. I said to my wife, I feel like this weekend is a really good opportunity for us to spend time together as a family, and I really feel like if 3/4 of us go to camp, that isn't just living separate lives, but making a point of living separate lives. At first, she thought I was trying to be included in the trip and go with her and the kids. I quickly explained that no, that was 100% not what I wanted, without even mentioning that being around my mother-in-law for an entire weekend would have required my entire bottle of Xanax. What I was hoping for was that she and the kids could stay home with me. There are a whole bunch of picnic, barbecue, and block party events going on in and around our neighborhood, and I thought we could go to some of those and spend time as a family. In my head, starting off by doing something as a whole family instead of just as a couple would build in a buffer for her and would give me a chance to show that I can be a real partner in parenting and would let her see me in what I know is my best light as a dad. That was what I thought in my head. But apparently my head and my wife's head were not on the same page, and she said no to that idea by saying, I want to spend the weekend with my family. One thing our therapist stressed repeatedly was that to have any chance at productive conversations, We both need to avoid any kind of escalation in our communication. So I took a deep breath and did not point out that spending the weekend with me and the kids would be spending it with her family.
No, stupid.
That's
She's
like-
talking about her whole family.
That's like needlessly misinterpreting what she just said.
You know what you're doing.
You know what she meant. If I were in a partnership and I was like, yeah, I really want to like spend some time with my family. I don't see them a lot this weekend at the freaking
The yearly
lake
tradition
house or
that
whatever.
we do
Yeah.
every year.
where we get to see all of the big family stuff.
Probably
and
been looking forward to it.
friends.
So have the kids, maybe.
And Opie's like, I'm your family. I'd be like, yeah, okay,
And
well,
you're
no, I
like-
didn't say you weren't.
And honestly, it sounds like your wife is like, yeah, and you can come to the
Yes!
lake.
Also, and despite what many Redditors have said I should do, I didn't lay out any ultimatums or ask her to cut back on contact with her family because that would be not good of you to do. Or suggest that she was planning some kind of lakeside hookup with some guy my mother-in-law might better approve of. But this is where I might have been the a-hole. Or definitely was, according to my wife. I tried sticking to the I feel idea and told her that I felt like if you took the kids and went to camp without me, especially if you only went less than a day after our counselor said we needed to make more time together, that you were making a choice. At that point, that's no longer an I feel statement. That's a I think that you,
Yeah.
which you can't make up what other people are doing
I
because
feel like you're excluding me.
like that doesn't work. That's not what an I
And
feel
it
statement
really
is.
so clearly reads like you're excluding yourself and
Yeah.
then making it her fault.
Well, just also like when therapists recommend I feel statements, it's supposed to be, I think, from what I understand, it's supposed to be I feel hurt, I feel excluded.
All right. The whole point is so that
Yes.
it's not you going, well, you need
Yes.
to do
And he
X, Y,
went,
Z.
I feel like you are making a choice, which is you didn't use it
You
right.
put a you in the I statement.
Yeah. And that choice was clearly not us. So in her mind, for all intents and purposes, I gave her an ultimatum. Do you think she took that well and we were able to have a calm and productive and healthy conversation about it and maybe even come to some sort of compromise? Do you think I'd be posting this at almost midnight on the Friday of a holiday weekend because my blood pressure is through the roof and I can't sleep if she did? She told me in no uncertain terms that I was the a-hole for laying that all on her. She reminded me that it was my choices that got us here in the first place. What did you do? She stopped packing, and after making sure both kids were asleep, she went into our bedroom, which has been only her bedroom for the last year, shut the door, and locked it. Now I have no idea if I'm going to wake up to my wife and kids waiting to hang out with me and spend the next 3 days together, or if they'll be on the road to camp before the sun is even up. I do know that she thinks I'm absolutely the a-hole, and I kind of think she might be right. Yeah! So my wife has already told me that I'm the a-hole in this situation, even if she didn't use those exact words, and I know nothing Reddit would have to say about it would change her mind, especially since I won't or can't tell her that I'm even posting about it. But I'm starting to question my own judgment a bit here. Maybe you all can set me straight. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife she was choosing her family over her family with me and the kids? And there are some comments, and I really want to read them.
Yeah. Let's honestly.
We're
let's
going to
just
get
read 'em.
into them. Common one. So my initial thought was that there must be some missing reasons and that you were not being honest. But having read all your posts, this isn't a healthy marriage, even before your job loss. Your wife doesn't seem to be able to communicate with you unless it involves criticism. This seems to mirror your mother's behavior so clearly you've developed a belief that criticism equals valid communication and therefore don't see why it's a problem. You pinpoint your job loss as the moment it all went wrong, but I saw from an earlier post and comment that your wife never wanted you to take the job and made it clear for 2 years that she disagreed with your decision. We need to go back to all of these posts. I need more context. So there's an issue with your wife's communication and treatment of you even before the job loss. I'm sure you've contributed to the issues in the marriage, which you have acknowledged yourself, but I'm just going to say something that you seem to be avoiding. I don't think your wife likes you. I'd probably agree with that. I don't think you guys really like
I
each
would
other.
agree.
I'm not talking about love or respect. She doesn't seem to like you on the basic level that a relationship needs to be founded upon. I don't know if she just married you because she felt she was running out of options or time to have children, but it seems like she married you even though everyone around her recognized that she was making a bad decision, and she regrets that decision ever since. You don't have to live like this. Even if you get past the issues with physical intimacy and trust and are able to live together as a couple again, she will still not like you. Don't you deserve better? You're the only one who's talking about love. She isn't. She can't even say she doesn't love you. She brushed past that entirely. OP, I don't think anything you do will be enough. You can't fix something if you don't know what is broken. More than that, you can't fix something that isn't broken, And I'm not sure this marriage is broken so much as a mistake. And I mean that kindly. Your wife seems to have married you for the wrong reasons and regrets it, and nothing you do will change that. Please consider further individual counseling to see why you're letting yourself be treated like this and why the success of your marriage is so crucial to you. Ending a marriage doesn't mean you failed, and you may even find it easier to parent without your parents and in-laws tagging along. OP says, the success of my marriage is crucial to me because I love my wife and my kids, and I want my family to stay together. When I thought I lost them, I have never been in so much pain. I get what you're saying about it not meaning I failed, but I have to disagree. What else could it mean? And that failure would leave me entirely alone, and I don't know if I could handle that. What's happening now could only be temporary. That wouldn't be. And there is an update. I would love to know what happened in those other posts, but I don't think that this relationship is long lasting.
I would just like to be a fly on the wall.
I need more backstory. I need long story long. I need long story even longer, honestly.
Yeah, what was your job? Why didn't she want you to take it? Why did you lose it?
Why did you get kicked out for 6 months?
I imagine this is in my head, so she didn't like the job, didn't want him to take it.
Yes.
Then she's pregnant with a baby. And then he quits his job and goes,
you didn't even want me to take it.
I quit that job you hated so much, honey. And she goes, right before I have the freaking kid? She's like, are you the dumbest person I've ever met? Yeah, I don't like the job, but now you needed the job because we're having a baby. What is wrong with you? And then she would you out, or you left, or she wanted you to leave, so you left for her. I don't know. We've never gotten a clear actual
information
statement on what that 6-month period was about.
I mentioned in a comment reply to my last post that my wife actually woke me up early the morning after I had basically given her an ultimatum to choose between our family and her family. She wanted to talk before she and the kids left for my in-laws' camp. TBH, I was expecting it to be the I'm not coming back or we should get lawyers talk, but it wasn't. To my surprise, my wife, I called her Carrie on the other sub, so I'll do it here, actually apologized. She said the comment about wanting to spend the weekend with her family had been out of line and intended to hurt me. She was pissed, annoyed at me because she knew I was kind of right about what I was saying, and she lashed out. It's not the first time that's happened, so her explanation didn't shock me that much. But she also said that she understood where I was coming from. If we want to fix things, and we both said we do, then lashing out like that needs to stop, and we do need to spend time together as a family. And she completely got why choosing to spend the entire weekend with her family, whose dislike for me had just become public knowledge, instead of being with me, might have been upsetting for me. For a moment, I thought she was going to invite me to camp with her, and I'm not going to lie, I was panicking. I was worried that right after I'd more or less demanded she spend time with me, I was going to have to refuse an invitation to do exactly that. But there was no chance I was going to willingly spend 3 days with my mother-in-law or sister-in-law, particularly not after our last counseling session. Carrie didn't invite me. Instead, she offered a compromise. She and the kids would go to camp Saturday and stay until midday Sunday, then come home and spend the rest of the weekend with me. There were some family members of hers who live out in California who would be there on Saturday, and she doesn't get to see them very often. That actually felt really fair to me. And like Carrie was putting in an honest effort to try and meet me halfway, so I agreed. I think that's really reasonable. I think it does. You know, it's good that she admitted it, that she was, because I didn't realize that she was coming from that as like I wanted to hurt him, which is why I said, I'm going to go visit my family. So it's good that they had that conversation, but I still don't know if this is going to work out.
You're going to let your mother-in-law and your sister-in-law like scare you forever? What are they going to do? Like, as we know in the previous story, mother-in-law or his wife seems to be somewhat supportive of him in social settings. It's not like she's going to just like also dunk on him. I feel like if you show up in a good faith gesture of like, we're working on a marriage. We know it's not good right now. It's public knowledge that it's not good right now, but we're trying to make it better. Are you going to dunk on us for that? Really? You're going to try to make us small for that?
I somewhat agree and somewhat disagree, because I feel like if you had like a person who like actively dislike you, actively are rude to you, I understand why OP would not want to be around them. But I also could see another world where he talks to his wife and is like, hey, I'm going to need you to back me up if they say anything. Because not like I just can't be around them if they're going to be rude and...
Well, and it's like, let's be real. You're at the lake. Like, you're not going to be spending the whole time with mother-in-law, sister-in-law. You got 2 kids. Go be a dad with your kids.
Yeah.
At the lake.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
They left for camp that morning and came back on Sunday as planned, and we had a really nice day and a half together. There was a block party kind of thing on Monday, and we took the kids to that, and I made sure to handle baby duty with our daughter as much as possible to give Carrie a break. She seemed pretty appreciative of that and got to spend some time with a few of our neighbors that she struck up friendships with and introduced me to some of them who I hadn't met yet. It was nice. It felt normal, I guess. But as the day wore on, it got to be time to head back home. I started getting anxious. The kids were wiped and would clearly be heading straight to bed, which would leave me and Carrie alone for more than the hour or so that we'd had on Sunday night. If we followed the counselor's advice, we should spend that time together. Yes, I was under no illusion that spending time was going to result in any sort of spousal relations or anything like that, but there would have to be talking, and I was concerned about what topics of conversation wouldn't lead us to some sort of trouble. And it felt like maybe I was right when the first thing Carrie said was that she wanted to talk about the possibility of her having those girls' night with her mom and sister. We'd essentially punted on that topic during our last counseling session. Other things had come up that had escalated tensions, and the therapist said we probably weren't in the best place to make a good decision about any of it at the moment. But since she'd spent a day and a half with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised it came back up. I was surprised that she offered another compromise. She didn't have to cut her work hours down part-time. She'd just have to adjust hours on other days so she could leave early on the girls' night days and come in late the following day. Apparently, she'd already cleared that with work and could start doing it whenever she wanted, even as soon as this week. She hadn't been at work since our last sessions, so it was obvious that she had gotten all this clearance before we had even talked about it with the therapist. On the one hand, I could see how it was a compromise and seemed pretty fair, which was good. On the other hand, I felt sort of misled. Like she had made the compromise about the weekend to soften me up for the possibility of agreeing to girls' night. Is that what she said, or is that what you're just assuming?
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because this whole thing reads like OP constantly
Makes
assumes the
assumptions.
worst
Yeah.
of any given situation.
Well,
and
even
then
in
is
this- yeah.
dumbfounded when it is not actually the worst possible scenario that could be going on.
Even in the zoo story, he was like, oh, when my wife defended me, that's the best. Like, I can't believe she did that. That's the best thing she's ever said in months. It's like he just assumes that his wife is gonna, I don't know.
Because, brother,
out to
it's
get him.
so true. And I would crap on that notion that it's like you find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for negativity. It just follows me around everywhere. But the more you just are attuned to finding whatever's wrong, the quicker you're going to be to see it. And that's all he does, it feels like.
It's the plot of Meet the Robinsons.
This guy is
Goob.
Goob.
You're Goob.
Oh, my God. OP is Goob.
He's Goob.
Oh no.
He's Goob. I'll say that might be me being paranoid or overly suspicious, and that's probably a direct result of how many she's planning to cheat or already is comments I've gotten here. But just because you're paranoid, that doesn't mean they're not out to get you, right? I did my best to ignore the paranoia, but also get to what was starting to worry me. I asked her flat out why having a weekly girls' night with her mom and sister, something she'd never done before, was so important to her now, especially since both mother-in-law and sister-in-law are very actively against our marriage. I said I didn't want to cut her off from them or prevent her from having some fun and an escape, but the idea of her spending an entire night out drinking and in situations where there's a pretty high likelihood of venting and complaining about relationships with two people who might be inclined to encourage her worst instincts when it came to our relationship made me really anxious. I didn't suggest that she might be using as an opportunity to cheat. I didn't even let on that the thought she might have find someone else had crossed my mind. I stayed as far away from any of that as possible and tried to keep the conversation focused on my worries about her spending that much time with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Carrie said she understood. She said that was a reasonable concern, especially given all that she'd shared in our sessions about her mom's feelings towards me. And she said that normally she'd probably give in and stay home and spend that time with me and the kids. But she said, my sister needs me right now. Her husband left her.
Dang.
And
Dang.
perhaps if we had asked, why are you reinstating these nights? In kind of a normal tone, just a questioning, curious tone, maybe we would have gotten that answer. Apparently, brother-in-law left sister-in-law the day after the family's annual 4th of July party, and my sister-in-law is not taking it well. And when sister-in-law doesn't take something well, my mother-in-law takes it worse. And since brother-in-law was the golden boy, the perfect son-in-law, the one I was always unfavorably compared to, there's a lot of upset and anger and sadness, and Carrie feels like she needs to spend time with her family to support her sister. She wants to help sister-in-law navigate suddenly being a single parent, and help her figure out if she can find a way to reconcile with brother-in-law, and basically act like sister-in-law's conscience, and keep her from making any bad choices while there's still the possibility of saving her marriage. Bad choices like hooking up with some random dudes at a bar during one of their girls' night, which, as I found out last night in counseling, is the exact reason brother-in-law left her. She cheated on him. So my wife is asking me to be okay with her spending nights out with her mother, who hates me, and her sister, who's a cheater and hates me, and not feel any kind of way about all that. By the way, you should feel great about listening to full episodes of stories just like this. Just go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or iHeartRadio and search up OK Storytime. There's a little bit left to this story.
He is also very steadily set on the fact that he will not leave her unless she cheats. And
he really wants her to cheat.
Yeah, and is like pushing and that's just something that their whole family does.
I think he really wants her to cheat. I think he's like, I think she cheated because I think she might have cheated.
A response, I don't know if there's a point at which I will go ahead and call it other than if she actually cheats or cheated. I won't stick around if that happens.
Well, it certainly doesn't feel like he wants that based on how he just wrote that. He's like, she expects me to be okay with her spending time with people who hate me and cheat on their partners.
But I think he thinks that she already has cheated. That's what all of those comments felt like. And even if I do, it doesn't really matter, as sister-in-law needs her, and Carrie's already made it all good with work. And in doing that, she was compromising on what she really wanted and had asked for, and that's a good thing and a sign of progress for our own reconciliation. And both Carrie and our therapist think if I can just see it in those terms, I'll realize that there's nothing to be worried or upset about, which is how I got here. Writing an update to Reddit while my daughter is napping in her crib next to me, and my wife is on her way to mother's house for girls' night, which got moved to Friday night thanks to the holiday, so she doesn't even have to worry about work tomorrow. And I'm just fine with that. Really, I'm totally 100% fine with it. I even told Carrie that on her way out the door. I'm fine with it. Go ahead, Reddit. Tell me I'm an idiot. An idiot trying to cling to any small steps in the right direction for his family, but still an idiot. And that's the end of that story, folks.
Man. My fiancé had unfair financial demands, so I gave back the ring.
Not my precious.
My fiancé, Tom, 37 male, and I, 28 female, have been together for 2 years. He moved into my house 6 months ago and proposed 1 month ago. I thought things were solid, but now I'm questioning everything. By the way, this comes from user Independent B8517, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OK Storytime subreddit. I'm Dakota.
I'm Keon.
I'm Carly.
And we'll try to give our best advice, but nobody's perfect. But we haven't experienced most of these situations ourselves, so if you have, let us know what you do in the comments. I inherited a fortune 3 years ago. It changed my life, but I live below my means. I work part-time as a teacher, travel, and have a non-profit in the works. I budget carefully so the money lasts. Only my dad and sister know the full amount. When Tom moved in, I paid everything except mostly groceries. He wanted us to eventually buy a bigger house together so his dad could move in. I said no to living with in-laws, but suggested maybe a separate unit someday. He pushed back, but agreed we needed to discuss finances first. Tom earns about $10,000 a month and has $100,000 saved. I have millions invested and about $40,000 a month income from it. When I told him, he was shocked. He said if I had so much, why not just buy the house and cover everything? I explained that just because I can doesn't mean I should. I proposed separate finances, a joint account for expenses, and splitting costs proportionally to income. I also told him I wanted a prenup. That's when things blew up. He argued we should be equal partners, meaning I buy the house in both our names, even if he doesn't contribute. We fought about this for days. Eventually, he gave me an ultimatum. Final offer. You buy the house. We each own 50%. I'll sign the prenup. Take it or leave it. I asked if that meant breaking up if he said no. He hesitated, but said yes, so I left it. I took off the ring, told him it was over, and that he needed to move out. He backtracked.
Wait. It was all a joke. I am a comedian. I was just joking.
Saying he didn't want to end things. He just wanted me to agree. He accused me of throwing away our relationship for money. I told him he threw it away by demanding I fund our life and give him half of the assets I worked to protect. Now I'm wondering if I sabotaged my relationship. I love him, but I don't think it's fair to bankroll a grown man or accept ultimatums about my own money. Am I the a-hole? And there are some comments. Comment 1. I learned a long time ago that if a couple can't agree on how to handle money, they should not be together. It's one of the biggest stressors in a relationship. Also, I wouldn't want an in-law living with us either. Guess who would probably be saddled with the majority of father-in-law's care? It's almost always the woman. Not overreacting, not the a-hole. Comment 2, not the a-hole. He sabotaged the relationship by holding it hostage to guilt you into funding his lifestyle. Reply to that says he just had the wrong mindset completely. If you're married, you're a team. If the house is in her name, your name, y'all's name, You're both living there and intend to stay together. So, when she told him the extent of her wealth, roughly $12 million if she's following the 4% rule, his first thought should have been expecting a prenup. You don't marry into money and expect to have half of it. You can reasonably expect to benefit from it, but only as a result of the wealthy person loving your broke butt. What do you bring to the table, buddy? Comment 3, he already shifted from dating you to dating your money. Emotionally, he left the relationship first. Sadly, some of his words cannot be taken back and will change the way you feel about him. It is okay to be sad and regret the loss of what could have been. Life is an effing adventure. Time to go live a new chapter, not the a-hole. And there's an edit. When we first started dating, he understandably questioned how I managed my lifestyle on a teaching salary. I explained that I had a small inheritance, which allowed me to buy my house and have some savings to live on. I admit I may have been wrong to be vague, but at the time, we were just starting to date, and I wasn't comfortable sharing all the details yet. My house is nice, but nothing extravagant, and during our relationship, we always split expenses 50-50. Dates, trips, everything. When he moved in, I offered to keep covering the utilities since I was already paying them, and he would handle groceries. Things were fine until after we got engaged. I pushed for us to discuss everything openly before marriage, and we agreed on most things. About his father moving in, this isn't something he wants right away, but he says eventually his dad would move in so he can take care of him. I adore his father, but I personally don't want to live with in-laws. His solution was that we should buy another house together, so he would feel like it's our home instead of him living in my house. I understood that perspective, but the new house would also have to be larger if his dad were to move in, which I'm not comfortable with. Regarding finances, initially, when we discussed buying another house, the plan was to contribute together. But once we started looking at what we could afford, we had to lay our finances on the table. When he found out my net worth, everything shifted. He said that if we split 50-50, we couldn't afford a bigger house, and since I had the means, I should buy the house myself, but it would still be our house. I told him that whatever amount he contributes would equal his share of equity in the property. Maybe I was naive, but until this point, I never saw signs of him being a gold digger. He never pressured me to pay for things and always split expenses fairly. That's why this change has been such a shock. Right now, I'm locked in my bedroom, and I told him he can sleep in the guest room tonight, but that he needs to move out tomorrow. We haven't spoken since, and that's where things stand. We've got an update here. This morning, I woke up, and Tom had made breakfast and asked if we could talk. He said things got out of control last night, and he wanted to explain his side. It's like nothing that you say anymore can have any meaningful weight because it's clear that you are just obsessed with the money.
Bottom line is, it's about the money, Spider-Man.
Yeah. He told me he was upset that I had lied about my finances and felt like I didn't trust him. He said the money difference made him feel that I would always have more power in the relationship and that he might be vulnerable to financial abuse. He insisted that he wasn't interested in my money, but wanted to feel that I would choose him over money. He admitted that he handled things badly and should never have reacted the way he did or given me an ultimatum. He said he felt lost and frustrated. The only thing he emphasized really matters to him is his father eventually moving in. They're very close and he wants to take care of him as he gets older. He apologized, said he didn't want to lose me, and told me he was willing to accept my conditions. I apologized for not being upfront about my inheritance, but I also told him I wasn't sure I could continue the relationship. His reaction last night felt entitled and manipulative, and I'm afraid he was showing me who he really is. I told him I love him, but I'm worried money will always be an issue between us. If he's already pushing for a house before marriage, what else might he push for later? I explained that the only way I could even consider continuing is if he agreed to a bulletproof prenup, stating that in case of divorce, he only leaves with what he contributed and nothing more, agreeing to buy a house together, but his equity would only reflect his contribution. I also suggested options like a guest house for his father or a condo nearby, but not living directly with us, creating a monthly budget where we both contribute proportionally to our incomes into a joint account for shared expenses while keeping our separate accounts for personal money, and going to counseling together. By the way, the next best thing to going to counseling together would be listening to full episodes of stories just like this on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search OK Storytime and you've got over 73 days worth of stories to listen to. He agreed to all of these points. Still, I told him I don't know if I can trust him again and need time to think. He agreed to go stay in a hotel for a few days to give us both space. Right now, I honestly don't know what to do. Part of me sees his point and wonders if he just overreacted, but another part of me is afraid that if I ignore his behavior, I'll be setting myself up for bigger problems in the future. I would really appreciate your help in figuring out where to go from here. And there are some comments. Number 1 says, money doesn't change people, but it exposes their true self. Take that information as you will. Comment 2, when he said she, quote, lied about her finances, it rubbed me the wrong way too. She didn't lie. She told him she received an inheritance. She just wasn't detailed about the size of the inheritance she received. Not giving every detail is not lying. The other thing that's annoying me is Tom's concerns about financial abuse. He makes his own money that he keeps. She suggested separate accounts with one for shared expenses, and she did so before his ultimatum. I'm failing to see how OP is going to financially abuse Tom when he has access to his own money. Reply. And now he's manipulating again because he still wants the money. I agree. It sounds like a lot of his things where he was like, all right, what's like the most bulletproof, like, things that I can say? What are the buzzwords that I can throw in there that'll make her sympathetic and make her forgive me?
And my favorite part is that, okay, honey, I'll give you just a couple days to figure it out. You should be okay. That couple days is all we need.
Fundamentally, it's over as soon as you're like gonna be like, yeah, no, then we'll just call the whole thing off unless you do this.
He tripled down. You're like, wait, say that one more time. You want to do this? Yeah, but like I'm altering the plan a little bit more, but still same plan. And you're like, no, okay. If I don't agree with you, then you're giving me an ultimatum. And if I say no, we're breaking up. He literally said, yeah.
And I feel like he did that because he got a catch-22 in his own brain where he's like, well, if I said that and now I say no, then it'll almost confirm that I won't split us up because I want the money. So I have to say yes, but then as soon as she agreed and was like, all right, then we'll split up, he's like, no, wait.
That's not how it went in my brain. That's not how it played out. You were supposed to say, okay, dang,